Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today is Austin Alley. Austin is a musician, a songwriter, and a multi-talented guy. Please welcome Austin Alley.
Hello. Thank you,
Hello,
Becky.
Austin. It's great to have you with us today.
It's very great to be here. Thank you.
Austin, tell people how you began your music career.
The way many people did. I was born in the 50s, and I was a little boy, and my sister listened to Elvis Presley and a lot of artists like that, and then over from England came the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and like millions of other kids in America, I had to have an electric guitar. So I finally got one when I was about 12 years old, and I also had an acoustic guitar, and it was one of those things you didn't have to discipline me to practice on it. I just wanted to do it all the time. So that, in a nutshell, that's the very beginning.
So you started practicing because you loved it.
Because I loved it. Yes.
You know, that's the very best reason to start anything, because people are automatically good at what they love because they keep at it until they are good, and
Yeah.
you are good.
Well, thank you, Becky.
You are.
I'm pretty good, but you know, there's a lot of people that are a lot better than me because they're maybe more disciplined than me, and I've had people even comment before, you know, I was listening to you play in the room there and it sounded like you were playing the same thing over again. Were you trying to practice it and get it really good? And I say, no, I just really like that chord.
When you come across with your emotion, the heart and soul and the joy of it, that's contagious. That is contagious, and that's what people feel when they hear you, beside the fact you have a fantastically beautiful voice.
Thank you.
And when your music is arranged so that your voice comes through just really clear, that's a true high point for you.
Well, anything that you do, there will be times when the band sounds right, the sound sounds right, the room is right, and it really is something truly profound that anybody in the room can feel it. You can also tell when you're a little off, maybe. Sometimes some nights are a little better than others, that kind of thing. Let me jump ahead a little bit. So you know about back in the 50s and that whole thing, but I used to live in Mount Shasta, and you could hike up to this mountain climbers camp up there, and I used to go up there. This was long ago, and people like to go up into the thin air, and it kind of gives you little insights. And I had this idea when I was up there that came to me. I was working a business there, but how all the favorite bands that I listened to growing up, not all of them, Beatles were four-piece, but many of the bands were one guitar, one bass, one drum. And I couldn't think of anybody that played country music that was doing that in an electric way. And I thought, well, that's a little bit outlaw. So the name came to me about the Rustlers. So this was actually thought about a few years before I started that experiment. And we literally started in a woodshed up on Nealon Mountain. People would joke, oh, so you're going to go woodshedding? Yeah, we are. And so it's been a very fun experiment, and it's been about almost a 30-year experiment now.
So that was the birth of Austin Alley and the Rustlers.
That would be correct.
Marvelous. So now you're quite a household name all over Humboldt County.
Yes, and what I'm actually doing right now is I'm actually teaching myself drums. I mean, I could always play a little bit, but I'm playing a lot of drums, because one of the things that I've always wanted to do is, like what John Fogerty and many other artists have done, is to do an album where you play all the instruments. Nothing against my guys, mind you. You know, John Fogerty did it, I believe Paul McCartney did it, and I did do one album where I did everything but the drums. But it's just something I want to do, so that's down the pike a little ways. But I'm playing the drums every night, and I'm also, it's kind of a contrast in my life, I'm working a day job too. I work at an auto dealership, and I'm just having a blast doing that. And every now and then somebody will come in and go, boy, I know your voice from somewhere, and I'll say, we are the Rustlers, and they go, oh, that's you? What are you doing here? What's your band? I say, oh no, we're playing next weekend or something like that. And so I kid with them, you know, Austin Alley, selling cars and playing guitars. So it's It's a lot of fun.
Austin, I know that you have many albums. What is your favorite, and what brought you to bring about that favorite album?
Okay. Well, there are four. I guess my favorite um, is probably country metal. Um, Probably the big reason for that is because of the song Jack of Diamonds, which was recorded eons ago as a waltz. My mother used to sing it to me when I was little. I knew the chorus of the song, a few of the lyrics, and I put together a different version. You're familiar with it, which is almost a rock and roll version. And I've been known to do this a lot of times, and that is if I don't know the lyrics to a song, and we're at the rehearsal or whatever, and I'm wanting to get it together, I don't want to have to wait and come back next week and find an old songbook. So I'll go, just take a break, guys. Let me write a verse there that'll fit the chorus. So
Right.
I wrote my own. I kind of rewrote this old folk song, but the lyrics are mostly the same. The chorus is the same, but I changed a couple of verses. And then later I went and I looked up the song, and I realized that I think everybody before did the same thing. There is no real version of that song. There's a jillion and one verses. There's more than one way to do the chorus. So without knowing it, I just kind of maintained that tradition, I suppose.
You did what every country singer before you had done.
Yeah.
That was the tradition.
I guess so, and I didn't even know it. So the song has a spirit of its own. And then, of course, the other song on the album, the title song, is Country Metal, which is a great song. A lot of what we do is dance music, and I realized after a time it's not the greatest dance song, but it's a good song. So, and then the other, and maybe this is on par with it, would be the first one, which is We Are the Rustlers. Great theme song, a great dance song. You might say it was my hit song. That was in the band that I have now. They weren't really part of the We Are the Rustlers era. So when I call that tune, okay, they play it. But before that, and for probably 10 years, it was the number one requested song that I did. And to this day, if you add up all the times that song was requested, it was the number one song. It was the song that we put in a medley that won the True Value Country Showdown, that sort of thing. Yeah, I would say Country Metal and We Are the Rustlers. But the other two albums, Ride Again, which I called it Ride Again because there had been a pretty long period of time before an album had come out. It's a very moody record. It's probably the most technically perfect of them all. It was recorded in a state-of-the-art studio, and that's the one where I played everything but the drums.
How fun.
Yeah.
How fun. So you kind of really were and are projecting to be, at least for the moment, at least on one song, a total one-man band.
Just about. And the drummer who played on that is also, he's probably the best. He is arguably the best record producer up here. There's one other guy.
There's two best ones.
But he's not a drummer too, so he both engineered that and played drums on it. Well, his name is Tim Gray, and he is a former Russler as well. He played for about a year. In fact, once you've been in the Russler band, and if life changes and you move on, then you become a member of what I call the Rustlers Auxiliary. Because you never know when you're going to get that phone call from Austin that says, "Hey, I got a gig this weekend, and Joe or Bob is sick.
And I need you."
I need you. And usually they'll say, "Okay, I'll be there." It's usually a lot of fun to come back for a night or two.
That's great. Well, I've enjoyed your band for years and always been a big fan, as you're aware, because I think it's really great. Particularly, I love your voice. I think you have an absolutely mellow voice. Very, very nice. It's moving. So that's a great plus. You're my favorite country band.
Well, that's awesome, Becky. You're a great dancer, and
Thank you very much.
I know you like to be out and checking out the music scene and everything. So that compliment means a lot to me.
Thank you. What's your favorite story involved in what you do?
Favorite story, the favorite. Well, there's some real funny things that have happened. I tell you what, here's one. It's actually not even a Russler story. I was actually playing with another band, and we went up in the mountains and we played for a wedding up there. And before we got started, this gentleman approached us, and we were out at the cars, after the stage was set up, and we'd eaten well and everything, and we were supposed to play in a few minutes. Anyway, this fella came up and introduced himself, and he said, "Listen, the bride has requested that I sing a song, the dance for her and her dad, And sure, what song is it?" And he says, "Well, do you know Unchained Medley?" I said, "I think we can figure it out." And we grabbed an acoustic guitar, and my bass player grabbed his bass, and we're working on it a little bit. And what key do you want to do it in? We were just figuring out the key. And he says, "Look, I'm not a very good singer, but don't worry about that, And I remember I told my bass player, Bert, and I said, "Bert, I don't think that's the right note there." And the guy says, "Actually, I think it is the right note." Well, however you want to do it, but I kind of say, I don't think so. See, it doesn't blend with this. And I'm going on, and he says, "Let me introduce myself. I'm Jimmy Bonds. I wrote Unchained Medley." And I said, "Sir, we'll do it any way you want." And
That's pretty good.
yeah, and he was at that time he was a booking agent out in Vegas, and he played golf every week with, I forget his name, but one of the Righteous Brothers, who made the big, huge hit out of that song. So that was here I was arguing with this guy, but I don't think that's how you do it. Well, he wrote the song, so.
That's a great story.
Kind of humbling,
Very humbling.
Yeah. There's been many funny things that have happened. There's some bad things. Sometimes a young man will get a little wound up, and you might see a fight in the crowd or two or something like that. One time, we were playing at this big hall, and just a tremendous fight broke out. And I hate to talk about the negative, but sometimes these things happen. And this guy walks up to the stage and pulls out a very big handgun and pulls the slide back on it, and he's looking me right in the eye, and I'm thinking, well, it's been a good life. And he says, "Don't you worry." And he turns around and says, "I'll protect you." Well, I'm usually very fastidious about winding the cords just right, get them all in the boxes right. We had that van loaded in about 2 minutes. Guitars, cords all wrapped around them, amplifiers, everything. We were out of there. And we even got paid. And nobody got hurt.
The fastest loading job you ever did.
Fastest loading job. It was a motivator. It's been mostly just wonderful fun. And I look forward to more wonderful fun. It's awesome.
Well, when you play such a huge variety of places, from sophisticated to very unsophisticated, you run into almost anything and everything.
Absolutely.
And fortunately, your band is pretty much all guys, not quite, but all tough guys that pretty much have this attitude. At least I can protect my instruments, and I will.
Right. Yeah.
And you do, no matter what. And fortunately, those things don't happen often, but they do happen.
And you know what I've noticed too, even in some very scary situations, and knock on wood, thank God for this, the band is sort of off limits.
It should be.
It's been very rare that anybody has actually wanted to pick a fight with me. It has happened, but it's very rare. Very rare. Thank goodness.
Yeah, well, the band should be off limits.
Yeah.
I have seen situations where somebody will come up and say, "Well, can I just play one song?" And then they can't get the person to leave or get their guitar back.
Yeah.
Crazy things happen, especially if people have had a few drinks.
Absolutely.
They're a little happier than you want them to be, especially in your place with your guitar.
Yeah. But you know something that you said. Now, my father was like that. I mean, being in many, many different places, many different stratas of society and what have you. My dad was an attorney, very respected attorney, down in the Bay Area. And, but you'd see my dad wearing a pair of khakis, walking down the street, walking his dog, and stop and have a very long, pleasant conversation with some guy picking up trash or, cutting your hedge.
Right.
This sort of thing. He was very, very comfortable with
Everywhere.
everyone.
Everywhere.
And I always noticed that. And that there was even times I thought, why are you talking to this guy, Dad? Or, he just thought that people were interesting and fascinating.
Well, I think it's one thing to be comfortable with literally everyone on all levels of life, but you've got a different mindset when you've got the guy that's a little high or a little drunk, because his mindset isn't there.
Right.
And it's kind of hard to use the regular, normal, intelligent human rationale when it's out to lunch.
A good way of putting it. Good way of putting it.
I mean, the lights are on, but perhaps nobody's home when he's doing this.
Yeah. Or you're just, it turns off that part of your brain that is the real thinking, rational part, and then the other part of the brain, I've heard it referred to as the reptile brain or what have you,
Right.
it's the one that's, that's...
Hooray for me, all I want's what I want.
Exactly, it's concerned with, finding a mate or as many mates as they can, or
a drink, or
who's
your
my
guitar.
competition, or what have you.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so solely ego-oriented.
I years
and not
ago,
rationale.
years ago, and I'll use this term again. Years ago, I remember I was playing a lot of shows where it was in bars. And that's what we did. We were earning a good living, but we were not earning it from, at that time anyway, from CD sales or concert tickets or something like that. Not even from cover charges at the door very much. It's booze.
Yeah.
So I referred to myself in one radio interview as a glorified liquor salesman. Never thought of myself that way, but I mean, let's be honest, and
Well, that's exactly what it is, and because if you've got the entertainment and music is good and the band's playing, people come in to what? Drink. Of course, the listening helps them. They
Right.
come in to listen also, but they stay and drink.
which and I've actually looked at this over the years, is some of the greatest songs are drinking songs.
Right.
So I even like to announce them. Drinking song, you ready? Here comes a drinking song. I remember when I was a kid, this buddy of mine, his dad had this album, and it even had empty booze bottles on the cover, and it was I think it was called Great Irish Drinking Songs. And come to think of it, I think I might have written one or two. I recently even wrote a poem about the magic of whiskey. But we'll say that.
Well, in country music, that has been a bottom line seller from as long as I can remember, all my life. Crying in your beer and divorcing and heartbreak and bottoms up. Let's have another one.
Yeah.
Themes
Yeah,
clear through the whole thing.
absolutely. Yeah. And so some of the greatest songs are drinking songs.
Some of the greatest songs that are drinking songs were foundational for country music.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
So I guess indirectly you probably really did help sell a lot of liquor.
I have indeed, and hopefully the imbibery was moderate of the noble spirits. Yeah.
But consequently, there's always occasionally going to be that person or persons that just doesn't know how to handle their liquor, and fortunately, that's why you
Mhm.
have a bouncer, a security
Yeah.
guard, a good buddy, a quick exit, something.
I will say too that over the years there's been many people, when I'm playing in bars and what have you, they do not drink. They are there for the music, and they'll have coffee or Perrier water and the like.
Oh, you're just looking at one of them. That's why you're saying that.
You know, I hadn't even noticed.
I come to dance and listen to the music. I love your music. I will come and listen to your music. Well, even when you were down to Has-Beens, I go down and have a cup of coffee and listen to your music because I really am a fan. I love it.
By the way, there's a place called Has Beans. She wasn't calling me a has been. But yes, I remember.
I
Thank
don't
you
think
for
you'll
coming.
ever be a has-been.
Oh,
I don't think that's possible.
well, thank you for that.
Well, one of the great things about having a memory that's a quality memory is that nobody can take it from you.
That's right.
It lasts forever because it's personally yours. It cannot be extracted. And that's how you've touched so many lives. So it's too late, Austin. You're already a part of many people's lives and great memories.
That always feels great to know that. That reminds me, I got a inquiry a while back from a soldier over in Qatar,
Okay.
over in the Middle East, and it was one of those times where they give you a few minutes where you can send email and stuff. And he said, "Is this the Austin Alley that put out the record Man in the Uniform?" And I just emailed, "Sure is. How you doing?" And he just said how much he'd really like to get a copy of that. So at that time, I remember that album was actually out of print. It's back in print again, and so I made one up and sent it back to him. And then he emailed me a while back, and with a picture of his new wife and everything, and he survived and came home.
That's so great.
Yeah.
That's so great because so many don't. Or when they come home so physically or emotionally battered that they're really wounded.
I'm actually writing a song right now that addresses that. And it's a pretty good song. I'm just wanting to put some more finishing touches on it to make sure that I have it right. And that will be a song of encouragement to them and a song to just help the rest of us be mindful, you know, of what they've been through. And we've lost so many of them. And so I think it's very tragic when we lose them after they come home.
A lot of them can't adjust back into life because they're suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And
Yes.
only recently have we really seen that for what it's worth. You know, some doctors did, but I'm talking about as a whole across the page. We didn't, as a nation, as medically, see post-traumatic stress disorder for what it was really worth. And so they didn't get the help they needed. Now, of course, there's a lot of help available, and they're really hitting that problem. But a lot of men came home basically lost. They couldn't find their way back into this society and work it out with the extreme trauma that they had endured over a period of time, not just once, but, you know, every day in a war.
Yeah. And for most of us, and I'm sure myself included, I didn't go through what they've been through. So as much as I want to understand and help, I know that I don't understand, but I want to understand. And so I think maybe that's a good start for most of us civilians back here that didn't go over there, is just to understand what they went through is an experience that's different from anything we can imagine.
I think what people don't get is that if they even try to understand, if they have empathy, if they have compassion for these men, they're only asking that.
Right.
That's a beginning because they come home feeling unacceptable, misunderstood.
Yeah.
They're in the middle of it, actually experiencing the horrors of it, and emotionally they can't feel right about anything on earth at that point except survival.
Yeah.
And then they have to deal with that. And if we can have some compassion and some gratitude for the fact that they were willing and went and put their life on the line for what they believed in,
Yeah.
and some thanks rather than some criticism
Right.
because they're not functioning as we would like them to function. And that's why they love what you write. Because what it's doing is it's reaching out and touching them in the heart.
You know, there's one thing that happened years ago, very brief story. I talked about the song Man in the Uniform, and it was at the old Captain's Galley Club which back in the day would just be packed with people. And there was a young Marine that would come in, and one night he came in his full dress uniform, which I know takes a lot of courage for them to do, because you don't want to get any, you don't want beer spilled on this thing or anything like that. But he came in, and it was a real busy night, and he had asked my bass player, he said, "Would you guys play Man in the Uniform?" And I forgot. And I forgot about it, and then the night ended, and we took a break. So if you're out there, buddy, I'm sorry. I felt horrible. I just felt horrible about
Austin, that really is a sin.
yeah, and
that may be the worst sin you've ever committed.
Well, I've just confessed it. No, and I did. I forgot it was. The club owner there too was always the type that would always come running up and going, "I need you to play a song like this right now. Now play this kind of music, or they're going to start leaving." And so I was feeling all this pressure and all that kind of thing going on. And I'm not blaming her. That was my fault.
I do know that happens, though. I've seen that happen to you, and everybody wants you to play their song right now.
Right.
Next.
Yes.
Right after this one.
It's all about me. Do you understand?
Right, and there's a whole bunch of them. Well, you didn't play my song, and there were only 12 requests at the same time. I've seen that happen to you.
Yeah. And you keep trying to learn how to
deal with it all.
Deal with it properly and
Right.
rightly and stuff.
Right, and that's hard enough to change and play everybody's song, because then you got to tell your whole band, okay, we're gonna do this one, we're gonna do that one. Well, what were we going to do next? We can't do that. We've got to do this.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's a constant in your life. You're a great shuffler. Do you ever play cards?
Actually, I did used to play a lot of cards.
You shuffle well. And how you get them to fit right in, and somebody that wasn't aware of that wouldn't be aware that you were doing that shuffling.
A little bit of it
Because
is
you do it well.
science.
Yeah.
A little bit of it's science, and a little bit of it's gut feeling.
You have a real feel for people, and this is another reason that your audience really loves you, because you come across as having warmth, human understanding, and empathy. You're a good interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.